The Greenbelt Advisory Commission. Can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Fife,
Here.
Commissioner Buttrick. Here. Commissioner Ramsberg, Commissioner Bloomer.
Here.
Commissioner Gordon, Commissioner Grand, Commissioner Stoffer,
Here.
Commissioner Pearlman, Commissioner Schuler.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any changes to the agenda? And if not, if someone wants to make a motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there support?
Support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, moving on, we have approval of the minutes, and these are minutes from the meeting of May 2nd. Let's just take a moment to review them. Okay. Does someone want, are there any changes to the minutes? And if not, does someone want to make a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there support?
Support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. Moving on to public commentary. I do see a couple of members of the public, and they are welcome to come up and make comments if they would like to. Did you want to introduce yourself? Say which, appears that you go to Huron.
Yes, I
And you go to Huron. And you're,
Obstructed view.
well, welcome. And I think you might need something signed saying that you're here, which we can do shortly. Next item on the agenda is old business. Does anyone have any old business? No, okay. Moving on to new business. I'd like to welcome Roseanne Bloomer to the Greenbelt Commission.
Thank you.
And if you wouldn't mind sharing with us a bit about yourself, I'd appreciate it.
Oh, sure.
Welcome.
My husband and I have a farm in Webster Township, and it was the first farm preserved by the Greenbelt, actually. We continue to run it. I also worked for the Farm Credit System for 37 years. I retired a few years ago. So I know a lot of farmers in the county, and I know a lot about the agriculture in the county.
Great. Well, welcome. We're
Thank you.
very glad to have you.
Thank you.
Serving with us. And we're also saying goodbye to one of our long-serving Greenbelt Advisory Commission members, Jean Cares. And I just want to personally thank you for your service, and we have a token of our appreciation for you. So, thanks so much,
nice.
Jean. We've
And
really.
I want to say thank you to all of you. It was a pleasure and an honor to serve on this commission.
Well, your input and thoughtfulness and guidance was very much appreciated, so.
I know you're good for both of you, and I'm very pleased to see Roseanne step into that spot.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the scoring committee. Is there an update, Sheila?
Yeah, we met on May 23rd and went through some of the considerations that had been raised already by the memo that Remy proposed of some of the criteria to consider, but we're still just gathering information, and we met our intern Lee, who presented some additional information, as she will today. One of the issues that was raised that I wanted to share with the committee today was that there was a need for general communications to set the context for the work that the scoring committee will be doing. And so we're asking the communications committee to pick that up in some way, and we can talk more in detail about what some of the issues are, but mostly communication about what the Greenbelt actually does, what it does not do, how it affects development in the area or it does not, and that context would be really important for setting before we changed anything about the scoring.
Great, that's a very good idea. Stephanie is making notes. All right.
Did you have anything to add from the meeting?
No, I think it was just, you know, a really preliminary thing, talking about what we could do. Because there was a lot of confusion, I guess, on our end, what were things that were mandated by the millage and what were other things that we could add and subtract. So I think it was also really helpful for us to be on the same page, so moving forward.
Great. And Roseanne, to provide a bit of context, we're looking at changing the scoring criteria that we use for evaluating properties and possibly adding some things in. And so we have a committee formed that's looking at that. We had a committee, I would say, 3 or 4 years ago, doing the same thing, looking at it, and then we put it on hold because we had a master student group looking at evaluating the program and how it's been received by Ann Arbor residents, and so we wanted to take that information into account when looking at the changing the scoring criteria.
I see. Okay,
So.
thanks.
Mhm. Hi, Julie.
Okay. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Put gas in his car that I love.
Oh, no.
I wasn't.
All right, and we're on C3 with the strategic planning update. Remy.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Evening, or afternoon. So there is a concrete update on the strategic planning process, which is really exciting because I feel
Great.
like I've been not giving anything concrete for months now. We have a contract in place with a consulting firm, and this general timeline that I've provided is an outline of what we will be doing with that consultant's help. So to review, I'll be meeting with them in this month, next week hopefully, to do a preliminary download of the current context of the program and an overview of the past 15 years worth of work that we've done, look at the strategic plan from 2013 and start to note some of the discussions that have been had around it and maybe some of its strengths and weaknesses. And that will set them and the context for them to sort of build a plan where next month at our regularly scheduled GAC meeting, we will make it a special GAC meeting where the agenda will be solely about the strategic planning process. And they'll facilitate in public session a strategic planning process for us all to work through. That would be phase one. And then in the same month, we would have the first stakeholder engagement session, and that would be stakeholders, you know, I don't need to tell you, but include our partners, our funding partners, community members, landowners that have worked with the Greenbelt, nonprofit groups, other government agencies, so city council, other commissions potentially, some staff from the city of Ann Arbor. So
What about past Greenbelt members?
yeah. And basically, I'll say this at the end, sorry. But yes, there will be a wide-ranging list of folks that we want to engage and should be in attendance at those meetings, but time and location to be determined. August 1st, we'll catch up where we need to and have a regular GAC meeting and hopefully be able to discuss some closed session items at that time, but everything will be put on hold so that we can have the special GAC meeting in July. And then again in August, another stakeholder session, and then September, another final Greenbelt Advisory Commission strategic planning meeting. And then at the end of September, we will have a final report and be able to discuss the final results of our updated strategic plan, which hopefully will include I'm going to do what I can to get on council's agenda. They have on non-city council weeks, you have work session meetings, which I'm told are appropriate places for staff programs to come and do a more in-depth dive on any given program. So it's been suggested to me that that might be a good place for an update on the strategic plan to council to be presented. So overall, the process is underway, and in between I have noted the public engagement events that we have committed to, or that I've committed to. So there are a number in June and October, and more will pop up along the way, but these are just opportunities, touch points where we can announce that we're in a strategic planning process and also invite some of the people there to participate in it, depending on who the audience is. Ultimately, though, where I need your help is that I would like GAC to drive the word for outreach and participation. I can do so much with our partners, and we can put out press releases, but you're well connected in this local community and beyond. So if you know who should be in attendance at the public engagement sessions and those stakeholder engagement sessions, please, I can get you standardized language, but make those connections and make sure the right people are here to provide input. And then in terms of more specific tasks, I would look to the communications committee to assist with developing appropriate time and locations for the public engagement sessions. And I can already tell you that this area is booked for both those dates. So is it during the workday hours? Is it in the evening? Is it on the premise, or is it somewhere else where we can rent a space and have easier parking access for members of the public? So those are things for communications committee to brainstorm up until, give me some lead time for the July 25th meeting.
And I'm not sure that it was mentioned, Remy, about the Conservation Fund receiving a grant for
Right.
this process.
Yeah, so the Conservation Fund, independent of the city, wrote for funding from the Americana Foundation to support our strategic planning effort. We received $15,000 in support, and that is what is paying for a private consultant to come in and help facilitate GAC's strategic planning process.
So great.
Yeah, that was Emmy, so don't give kudos to me. Next time you see Emmy, give kudos to her.
And did you say that we are supposed to be or not supposed to be present at those stakeholder engagement meetings?
That's up to you. We need to be conscious of having a quorum, I think, if enough members are in the room. But other than that, maybe we can decide ahead of time if there's a way to split it up in terms of attendance, and there might be some natural splitting in that regard of given the dates. It will be a busy summer, and I appreciate you all buckling in for that and being ready to participate and help however you can, because a 4-month turnaround for an updated strategic plan is pretty impressive, but I've been talking about it long enough, so we should have it done by the end of September.
Julie, did you have something to add?
Well, I can, certainly bring this to the administration, I'm on the council administration committee, and we're the one who sets work sessions. I know they're pretty booked out, but I'm assuming you've talked to staff about availability for the fall?
I talked to Derek, he said,
Okay.
and if it has to go into February or March, that's fine too. In conjunction with this, I have a lot of ideas about, a celebratory 15-year video. We're halfway through the millage. Here's the 15 years of success that we've had, and here's our vision for the next 15 years. And that video, we'd have to wait until we have the vision set in stone
Sure.
to produce, but give it time for that to be produced, and then sit down with council and be able to show them that, and then also give a more in-depth presentation.
Yeah, and I agree. I think depending on how we envision our stakeholder group, where we'd want to hold those meetings might want to vary as
Right.
well.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
So, but I'll certainly do my best on my end to get the word out, just to, make some sort of public announcement about the process for sure. So if there's anything you want me to do,
Cool.
let me know.
Thank you. And this is a draft. Some of the dates could potentially change, but these are the dates that we found really kind of evenly broke up the work across the next 4 months. And we can get creative with time and location, but the number of engagement sessions is kind of limited by the constraints of the budget of what we received in terms of funding. So we're going to work within those parameters, but this is excellent, in my opinion. This is great. Two GAC sessions bookending public engagement where we can get a lot of meaningful feedback to process at the final session to set forth the final report.
Great.
Cool.
Great work.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
That really just bleeds into the next agenda item, which is events coming up, which I
Right.
kind of covered.
Yeah. Yes, so coming up on June 14th, Mayor's Green Fair, don't miss it. It takes place in the evening on Main Street. The Huron River Watershed Council is putting on a millage workshop for townships that don't currently have a PDR program but are and residents who are interested in implementing one. I think were you going to be at that, Remy? Yes, that's what I thought. These are all things that you'll be at, right. Gordon Hall Days in Dexter coming up on June 23rd. Remy will be on a panel. Put this on your calendars, the Greenbelt Bus Tour on October 12th. Remy will be presenting to the Huron Valley Sierra Club on a panel on October 15th, and he will be speaking at the Ann Arbor Downtown Rotary Club, which is currently meets at Weber's on October 30th. So all great outreach that's happening over the next several months. Coming up next on the agenda is presentation from our Greenbelt intern. Do you have something else?
I
Dan?
do. I'm going to do a brief introduction.
Yeah, I was hoping either she would
Cool.
introduce or you would introduce.
I'll let Lee explain herself, but just in terms of context of where this internship came from, we've got a lot of great data sitting in our files of what we've accomplished. And some of it has been used in our annual reporting, and some of it has been used on a case-by-case basis for press releases. But ultimately, we haven't had someone do a deep dive and number crunch and analysis of a lot of what is sitting in that treasure trove. So as we advance strategic planning, as we advance our public outreach and understanding of what we've accomplished in the last 15 years to get people excited about the next, the internship was going to be focused on kind of extracting some of the most important information from our data sets. So it turns out Lee was the perfect person for that, so I'm going to let her come up.
Great.
And she's been with us for like 3 weeks. So this is a draft work in progress, and at the end of July, you'll get a final report.
Great.
Hi, so I'm Lee. I'm at the C School at Michigan. I'm really excited to be here as well. So I don't know if you guys can turn around, or do you have a screen? Oh,
Yeah, we
now.
have
Okay.
personal screen. Don't worry.
Okay, so, and is this, okay, so to begin with, this is the treasure trove that Remy is speaking of. As you can see, it's not easy to digest. It's pretty, yeah, it's pretty messy, pretty complicated, a lot of acronyms, and not interpretable by the general public, let alone, I assume, most of the board even. So to begin with, I'm doing this right, just to give you guys some quick statistics I ran for our area. And the top, you can see in the red, just the amount of farmland that's been lost since 1935 in the county. That seems quite significant, but the good news there is that almost 5,500 has been protected just with the Greenbelt. And then moving down, you can see that number shows you how many acres are in the Greenbelt, not including the city. And then the breakdown of that 87,000 some by woodland, wetland, and farmland. And these are not mutually exclusive, so there might be overlap. I'm sure there's some overlap between those numbers. So after calculating that, we can then get how much has been protected as of the last project that ended in March. Okay, so March. So we have 5,491 acres protected, and of that, you can see how much of that is wetlands, and it gives you a percentage as well within the Greenbelt, and woodlands, as well as farmland or ag land. So these are just different options of quick, like, informatics to throw out there, easy to understand and pretty. So now I'm gonna move into graphs. I would appreciate if anybody has questions at any time, just stop me and I'll explain it versus holding it through the end. So this is, I think this is Remi's favorite.
Sorry, I did have a question about the
Oh,
last
sure,
slide.
yeah.
So the 5,120 acres of protected ag land in the Greenbelt, that's including our partner, is this, okay,
Yes.
that's what I thought.
All projects we participate in.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, so this one, I think is a good representation of an issue that may have faced the Greenbelt in the past, where, as you can see, out of the total fair market value of what the land is, for instance, the Greenbelt has gotten all this land for only contributing 36% of it. So although it might seem like this like 50-50 match that was a concern, it's actually much better. So it's a little over a third that the Greenbelt has to contribute to get all the land it currently has. And this is just a breakdown of all the other funding sources. So ASAP is the federal grant, the landowner contribution, other is a mishmash of random donations, the county, Washtenaw County, as well as the townships, all townships. And so, to be clear, the protection or protected FMV is what is actually being spent. So this is a breakdown of that protected FMV. This is where we're getting that almost 50% of Greenbelt, which, although compared to the others, only 36%. So again, same data, different way to show it, and this doesn't look as good as the other. Continuing.
question.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, on this slide, so if I read this correctly, it tells me that the townships have contributed about 10%, and the county has contributed, which one was the county? 13%.
Mm-hmm.
I'm astonished that those two are so close to each other. I would have thought that we had many more projects with the county where we were 50-50 with the county, and then the townships were just a sliver. So clearly not. So this
It-
is something we should show to, point this out to city council. Townships are contributing a lot,
Yeah.
certain townships.
That's the other
Okay.
point to mention, and you'll see later on, is that it's, of course, only some townships. All right, so moving on, again, brief overview. This is of the 61 projects, the breakdown by township, where they're located. And then further, that may be of interest is the average number of partners for projects in each township. So this is partners being the township, county, ASAP, Greenbelt, other landowner. This one is your matching funds. So for each, annually, every year, the Greenbelt gives a certain amount, which is in green, compared to the total matching funds. And as you can see, that seems to fluctuate a lot.
I wonder what happened in 2010.
Yeah, that's what you were saying too. I think that's one of the years with the most projects, so that might have been part of it.
I mean, the recession hit and give it 2 years lead time to get projects in the pipeline and then funded and closed, and it would have closed in 2010. So
Yeah.
just a influx of interest and then the availability of the funding.
Lee, in the previous slide that's by project, do you have any sense of whether certain townships participate in more or less expensive? So this is sort of projects by township in terms of number, but in terms of dollars, are certain townships contributing more to more expensive projects versus
So
less
I don't
expensive
know
projects?
if it's relative to the total cost
Mhm.
of that project, but I can run that pretty easily. But I do have as far as what they've given total.
Total.
Yeah. But I will definitely add that.
I'm just curious if like the two projects that some township participated in were really high or, you know. what
Yeah,
their
and I
contribution-
think that's, and you're saying by township, right?
Yeah,
I think that varies a lot too, since some have that millage, and others just do a standard like 500 or 1,000
mhm,
for,
mhm.
regardless of
Good.
what size it is or how
Mhm.
much it costs.
And you're talking about city-led projects?
Not necessarily,
So
just whether,
it would be very surprising to me if there was any project in our history where we were asked for funds above 50%.
okay. Mhm.
Usually partners aren't asking for more than that.
Mhm,
If it's a city-led project, then yeah, we maybe pay more,
mhm.
maybe we pay 75%. But for us partnering with another lead entity, I can't imagine an ask being above 50%.
Mhm.
Okay, so continuing on,
yeah,
this
this is
is
the
how much is spent in total. Again, this is the protected FMV in each township. So this is not divided by funding source.
Mhm.
And then this is kind of a quick visual in your face just to get used to the colors. But so of all money spent by each source, it's allocated this way by township, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And then in the corner is the numbers from the previous, these numbers divided up that way.
Again, it'd be interesting to know whether, say, that Webster Township funding for landowner funding, was that one big parcel, or was it, are they continuous? So we kind of know.
Yeah, so
in
I
terms of
have-
strategic planning, are there places that, you have that?
It's
Yeah,
coming.
okay, cool. That's good.
Yeah, this one was just to give you a quick, I didn't
Yeah.
really include numbers except when they weren't quite visible, a brief overview. So this again, if you see that in the top corner, Greenbelt funding, this is it broken down specifically. So of all the money Greenbelt has spent, this is how it's broken down by township, not averaged, but if you can see, if I can go to the next slide, I give an example of averaging. So again, these can be repeated for each single one, but I didn't want to be too repetitive, so I just did one for each. So one of the total, the Greenbelt funds, and this is an example of the average landowner contribution for any project by township. So on average, they're giving this much, if that makes sense. And this one seems to be most helpful to people that are applying to the program. It's common to ask, like, how much is my land worth? And based on the 61 projects that have gone through, these are your average, minimum, and maximum. All right, so this is a percent breakdown of the money spent for each funding source by township. So given all the money that's been spent, you can see that by percent. This is kind of one way to show it, but I find this other way preferred. So it's the same data, but separated, so it's not percentages. Again, so it's compare the funding source by township. And to to give you, since this is a sum, I also did the average. One thing to note here, I'm gonna flip back, but note this, the axes, vertical axes is on a different scale. But if you can note the green bars, the green belt, and everyone changed, it's a completely different, I mean, it's very, you can make the data bias, is what I'm trying to say. And so, although it looks like we're giving a lot of money to Webster, comparatively, it's not the one we're giving the most per project. Or the Greenbelt isn't contributing the most per project.
Right, that's what I was getting at with the project versus,
Yeah.
and I think you might be able to show that in some of the pie charts where you have total amount spent by township. Just put that project number into the pie part, and then we can see, if you see both at the same time, you'll be like, oh, total amount, but only on one project, and so
Right.
it gives some context. So that
Context.
would be
Yeah.
a good way to do it.
I will add that as well. So this is the amount of land the Greenbelt has protected annually as well as cumulatively. And 2009 is not over yet, so it will go up, hopefully. Total acres protected by township. Again, these can all be averaged to whenever there's total or sum. This one is kind of fun. I went kind of deep dive into the U.S. Ag Census. And here we're looking at the number of farms in Washtenaw County since 1935, as well as a comparison of the total acres protected in the Greenbelt, if that makes sense. So again, while farms are going down, we're protecting more and more land. Ideally, we would want to know like the loss of land, ag land, going down through the years, but that's only at a county level and not at the Greenbelt level. So this is kind of my best attempt to sort of represent that trend.
How come I don't see any farms in 2013 through 2016?
Yeah, so the U.S. Ag Census is every 5 or so years, so it doesn't have data annually.
Yeah, so
While there's,
35.
yeah, if you look at the others, you can see the date gaps in between.
Yeah.
So I think that's it. Are there any questions or suggestions?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is very useful information.
I'm glad to have helped.
And Lee, you're, before joining C's, what was your undergraduate work in? And what is your, what are you working towards with your degree with C's?
Yeah, so I made up my undergraduate degree. It's called environmental troubleshooting. It's environmental science with business, economics, cultural studies, spatial studies, and policy. So I did that in California, and then I worked and then came here, and I am pursuing sustainable systems specialization as well as environmental planning and policy. And I don't know what I want to do after, to be quite honest.
You're doing a master's project.
I am doing a master's project.
Can you tell us about what your project is?
Sure. So I am looking at urban circular metabolism modeling in Chilean cities. So kind of resource flow and how to make it more circular or sustainable in South America. So I'm excited about that as well. But this is a new, land conservation is a new field for me, so I've quite enjoyed it
Good.
so far. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Next item on the agenda is next agenda items. Does anyone have anything to put on the next agenda? Which would be August. Okay. We do not have a closed session, so we're not going to do that. There's another opportunity for public commentary, and I do see some other members of the public here. If they want to so comment, they are free to do so. No? Okay. Communications, we could include that as report from Communications Committee,
We have not met, so we have no report.
but you have things on your list now
We do
from
indeed.
today's meeting.
But actually, we could use another member, since Jean was the other member of our communications committee. We could use a third member, so it's John, Ramsberg, myself, and of course Remy. And not that I'm putting any pressure on Roseanne, but would you like to?
Sure, that would be
Anyways.
fine. That would be fine, I'd be happy to.
Oh, well,
That was easy.
okay.
Thanks, Roseanne.
In line with Communications Committee, because I'll probably be running strategy around this by you guys. I did get my drone pilot's license, and Parks and Rec has a drone for us to use. So I plan on trying to fly properties prior to council meetings, so that I've been advised that probably the best way to get the video to council is just through a URL on CTN's YouTube, and then just ask that they view it before the meeting. You know, of course, it's going to rely on landowner consent to do that. Some landowners will not want footage of their property out there, others will. But my goal is over the summer to get with some of our longstanding Greenbelt property owners and see if I can fly their properties, get some stock footage that we can use in communications videos, and then aside from that, start actually letting council see properties and experience them before casting a vote.
Exciting. Thanks, Remy. Next up is Executive Committee report, and I can provide the update from that. Stephanie and I met with Remy and Lee on May 28th to talk about the agenda for this meeting. We did talk about some of the projects that were closing and set to close, and others that we are partnering with that are headed to council. And we talked about the scoring committee having their first meeting. Remy had mentioned to us about the Americana funding secured for the strategic plan. He had also mentioned about his drone pilot license, yay, and the bus tour. And that was it with executive committee. Sheila had already given us the scoring committee update. Anything else to add?
Just that our next steps, now that we know where the strategic plan lies, that's kind of, we wanted to work in parallel with that, so it's really helpful to know that that's going on, because that'll help us. Basically, a lot of the conversations we had were realizing we need to know what matters to us and what fits into the strategic plan, so that'll go nicely with our next steps.
Right.
And Lee will continue to produce, really, I guess, I thought maybe you were going to present on that. I guess I'll just put in that she also is working on a giant table of comparison of other Greenbelt programs that's been really helpful for us to compare existing criteria, and those will allow us to see how we can streamline our criteria essentially and use what's available.
Great. Thanks. Robert?
First of all, I apologize for being late. I don't know whether we discussed a state ruling from a couple of days ago that would open up roughly 5,400 square miles of Michigan agriculture land. I don't know how many acres that is. 2 solar panels, which I think are now excluded from being considered under the Greenbelt. But under the state ruling, I think we really didn't want to look at that again.
I
Thank
guess
you.
that actually also relates to some discussion we had in the scoring criteria committee about meshing with sustainability goals of the city, and that might be an area where we would want to discuss if solar panels on farmland is.
Yeah, I'll get a copy of the ruling and forward it to everybody.
Great. Thanks, Robert. And we had also recognized Jean earlier in the meeting. So thanks so much, Jean, for coming out, for attending the last meeting. We certainly appreciate all of your efforts over the years. And we'd also welcomed Roseanne, our newest member. So on that note, does someone want to, yes, Stephanie?
When do we vote on officers for the upcoming year? Isn't that sort of,
Typically
time?
around
Great
this
question that I
time. I think it's usually around this time that we do that. So, I guess I will entertain.
August?
Yeah, maybe we
August
should wait
sounds
till
great.
August,
We'll do
because
it in
there could be
August.
maybe
Okay,
some
there we go.
nominations from the floor.
Great.
All right, so that will be added to next agenda items. Okay. All right, anything else to add? All right, does someone want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Support?
Support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.